Finals are tomorrow and I still don't understand gene pools.
I'm just going to take a quick nap.
Wake up! I'm the gene pool wizard.
Is this real life?
Unfortunately, yes. And I'm here to help you study for exams about genetic variation, gene pools, and much, much more. Genetic variation is studied in populations, a group of individuals of the same species that interbreed. Because these organisms interbreed, they share a common group of genes. With genetic variation comes gene pools. Gene pools are within a population and consist of all genes and all the different alleles within the population. Gene pools can change when you expand the population, such as immigration and emigration. If we look over here, these M&Ms could represent the different alleles of a population, therefore being the gene pool.
I think I'm catching on now. So, if this red gene were to leave, then eventually the red gene within the population would disappear.
Nicely, Cristina.
So, then speciation would be like if a pretzel were to enter the gene pool, then the whole population could change and become pretzel M&Ms.
Well, Cristina, you seem to be learning pretty quickly. Let's move on to some other topics. There are 3 types of natural selection: directional selection, stabilizing selection, and disruptive selection.
Directional selection is when environmental conditions cause one of the extreme phenotype traits in a species to be favored and eventually replace another in the gene pool. This graph could represent the peppered moth species, which started out surviving better with a white phenotype and slowly began to favor the dark phenotype as the Industrial Revolution brought black smog to the moth's habitat. Stabilizing selection occurs when selection favors the intermediate trait value over the extreme values. This graph could represent a species of bird that has both long and short beaks, but due to environmental change begins to thrive with an average-sized beak. Disruptive selection, the last type of selection we're going to discuss, occurs when selection favors the extreme trait values over the intermediate trait values. In this case, the variance increases as the population is divided into 2 distinct groups. Disruptive selection plays an important role in speciation.
Well, Cristina, I would like you to meet my assistant Bredicus, who will teach you about the 3 types of isolation.
Well, hello there. There are 3 types of isolation that can lead to the evolution of a new species: behavioral isolation, temporal isolation, and geographic isolation.
The first type of isolation we're going to talk about is geographical isolation. Geographical isolation is when members of a population become separated from another population by geographical barriers that prevent the interchange of genes between the separated populations. For example, if originally one species of squirrels started out and over time the Grand Canyon separated them, ultimately they would become 2 different species.
I'm going to go on to temporal isolation. Temporal isolation is when 2 different species cannot mate with each other because they follow different patterns of time. For example, if one bear hibernates longer than the other, they cannot breed with each other.
The final type of isolation is behavioral isolation. That is when a form of reproductive isolation in which 2 populations have differences in courtship, rituals, or other types of behavior that prevent them from interbreeding. For example, if we had 2 types of birds and one had a different mating ritual or courtship song, it wouldn't attract the other bird, therefore their populations would never breed together. Everything I've had to say about genes. Now we're going to ask the other people of Gene Land about what they have to say.
So, how do you feel about genes?
Gene pools are pools of genies, not the kind of pool you dive into, but genies like in your body.
To that educated answer, I think we've gone over everything we need to go over. I hope you do great in your exams. Now I'm going to send you back on your way.
Whoa, that was really weird.
how it really helped. I think we can do really well in this exam.